It was a calm, clear evening when the first signs of the alien fleet appeared in Earth's skies. At first, there were no alarms, no flashing lights, no military action, just an odd and subtle ripple in the atmosphere. It wasn't a spacecraft entering the atmosphere, but something far stranger. The objects coming down were in pieces, scattered across the sky in a way that seemed almost deliberate. They were parts of ships, broken fragments of a fleet, burned and battered from some unknown catastrophe in deep space. Governments around the world scrambled to react, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. A loud, sudden burst of static from Earth's communication satellites broke the silence, followed by an alien signal, a language that sounded like a blend of clicks, static, and tones, unlike anything humanity had ever heard. Yet there was a pattern to it, a rhythm. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate. As the pieces of wreckage fell to Earth, they landed in vast, uninhabited regions, deserts, oceans, frozen tundras. The damage to the technology was obvious, but so was the sheer scale of the alien ships that once were. The wreckage was enormous, some fragments the size of small cities, others barely recognizable as anything more than twisted metal and shattered systems. Among the first to arrive on the scene were Earth's leading scientists and military experts, along with the media. Their immediate reaction was disbelief. The Zorathians, an ancient race humans had only heard of in the oldest mythologies and alien studies, had fallen. This wasn't just debris. It was the aftermath of their once mighty warships, left behind like broken toys after a battle that none of them had been able to survive. But then, a broadcast from the wreckage shocked the world. An alien voice, deep and calm, spoke in clear, albeit fractured, human language. "We are the Zorathians. We offer this gift to your world. Use it well." The signal cut off abruptly, leaving more questions than answers. The Zorathians had clearly been in some sort of dire conflict. They offered no details on what happened or why they were giving away their technology. The words were strange, almost a warning hidden in the guise of a gift. Were they planning something, or was this their way of fleeing a much greater force? World leaders debated endlessly. Some feared it was a trap, while others saw it as an opportunity. If the Zorathians had fallen, what could that mean for Earth? Could they have technology capable of pushing humanity to the stars? Or worse, the weapons to destroy everything? The answer, it seemed, would lie in the wreckage itself. The first teams sent to the crash sites were careful, methodical, as they began cataloging the parts. Alien engines, shattered weapons systems, and twisted remains of craft too damaged to immediately recognize. But among the devastation, a sense of awe began to take root. This wreckage was more than just broken ships. It was a map, a puzzle, a treasure trove of untapped power. As days passed, humanity's brightest minds gathered at the largest of the wreckage sites. The aliens' technology was incomprehensible at first, too advanced for any human to make sense of. Yet there was something unmistakably human about the drive to figure it out. If the Zorathians had survived long enough to build these ships, it meant that some part of their technology could be understood and, eventually, replicated. Unknown to the Zorathians, Earth was already changing. The wreckage had sparked a fire in humanity, a desire to not just study but to adapt, to take what the aliens had left behind and make it their own. This was the first step. The wreckage had been on Earth for just under a week, and already the world was buzzing with activity. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel from all corners of the globe gathered at the crash sites, working around the clock to analyze the alien technology. What had seemed like a disaster for the Zorathians was quickly becoming humanity's greatest opportunity. It was clear the wreckage wasn't just a collection of broken ships. It was a treasure trove of untapped potential. Some parts, while damaged beyond recognition, still contained enough intact systems to spark curiosity. The human engineers had no experience with such advanced technology, but that didn't matter. They had something the Zorathians likely didn't expect: a relentless determination to figure it out. At a secret facility in Nevada, the world's top scientists stood around a massive piece of alien technology. It was a propulsion engine, or at least it looked like one. It was a sleek, dark metal with intricate circuits and energy conduits that hummed faintly with residual power. The human team's task was simple: to make sense of it. Dr. Emily Carter, one of the world's leading physicists, stood at the center of the operation. She had worked in advanced propulsion systems her entire career, but even she was taken aback by the alien design. "This isn't just advanced, it's a completely different way of thinking about propulsion," she said, running her fingers over a glowing conduit. "What do you mean?" asked Michael, her lead engineer. "It's like nothing we've seen before. The energy source isn't conventional. It's far more efficient. It uses some form of quantum stabilization." She paused, staring at the engine with a mix of awe and determination. "We need to understand the principles behind it, but if we can, we could power an entire fleet with a fraction of the fuel we currently use." Her team went to work. Over the next few days, they carefully disassembled parts of the engine, mapping out the alien circuitry, the exotic materials, and the complex energy systems. At first, progress was slow. The technology was a puzzle, and each piece felt like a different language. But there was one thing they soon realized: humans were natural problem solvers. While the Zorathians had built their ships with purpose, humans were able to adapt them with creativity. In another corner of the world, in a large aerospace lab, engineers were working on the hull fragments of a Zorathian Dreadnought. The metal was far lighter than anything they had on Earth, yet it was stronger than steel. It resisted heat, radiation, and even high-speed impacts. When combined with human knowledge of metallurgy and materials science, it became clear that the human race could build ships far stronger and more durable than anything they had before. The potential was staggering. Back at the Nevada facility, a team of military experts, including General Richard Hayes, watched with growing excitement. "What we're seeing is nothing short of revolutionary," Hayes said, his voice laced with awe. "If we can weaponize this technology." The room went silent. The implications were enormous. No longer was humanity just trying to understand the wreckage. They were now considering the unthinkable, turning it into a weapon of their own. Dr. Carter, however, had her reservations. "We need to be careful. We don't know who these Zorathians were fighting. If their enemies are stronger, we might be playing with forces we don't fully understand." Hayes, ever pragmatic, shook his head. "If we don't take advantage of this, someone else will. We've seen what happened to the Zorathians. We need to act fast." Meanwhile, across the globe, small groups of engineers, military officers, and technicians were piecing together the alien ships. A structure began to form, a new kind of warship. It was bigger, faster, and more powerful than anything humanity had ever created. Some of the ships were still in their early stages, but already the first successful tests had begun. When they powered up the first prototype of the new alien-human hybrid ship, it glowed with an eerie energy, unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Word spread quickly, and people began to believe it. Humans, once powerless against alien forces, were now on the verge of becoming a galactic power. And they were going to make sure they didn't waste this chance. The wreckage wasn't just a gift. It was a spark, one that would ignite the flames of human innovation and change the course of history forever. The days that followed humanity's first foray into alien technology were filled with triumphs and setbacks. Yet, despite the challenges, there was an undeniable sense of progress. The first human-modified warship, dubbed the Vanguard, was ready for its maiden test. The vessel, a hybrid of human design and Zorathian technology, was something no one had ever seen before. It was sleek, its hull shimmering with an alien alloy that defied the principles of known metallurgy. The weapons systems, still in their infancy, had the potential to obliterate entire fleets, though no one yet knew how well they would work in action. The test would come soon enough. Earth's Space Defense Network had detected a large asteroid, one large enough to cause significant damage if it collided with Earth. While it wasn't an immediate threat, the situation was perfect for the Vanguard's first real trial. General Richard Hayes watched as the crew prepared for the test. The mission was simple: destroy the asteroid before it had the chance to break apart and send deadly fragments toward the planet. The crew of the Vanguard, mostly composed of military personnel and a few of the top engineers who had helped design the ship, was nervous, but there was a quiet confidence in their eyes. This was more than a mission, it was a statement. Humanity was no longer just a curious species in the cosmos. They were becoming a force to be reckoned with. As the ship took off from Earth's surface, the massive asteroid loomed in the distance. It was a hulking mass of rock, a reminder of the dangers of space. On board, the crew worked in silence as the ship powered up, its alien systems humming with energy. The vessel moved smoothly through space, faster than anything humans had ever built. "It's time," Hayes said, standing in front of the crew. He turned to Dr. Emily Carter, who had been instrumental in adapting the alien technology. "You're sure everything's functional?" "As functional as we can make it," she replied with a steady voice. "The energy system is stable, and the weapons are primed. We've only run a few minor tests on the weapons so far, but everything checks out." The asteroid was getting closer and time was running out. The Vanguard closed the distance with terrifying speed. Hayes gave a quick nod. "Let's do this." A moment later, the ship's primary weapon, a Zorathian plasma cannon, adapted to Earth technology, charged up. The crew watched as the massive barrel began to glow a deep blue. Emily Carter's heart pounded in her chest. She had no idea how this would play out. They were about to fire the weapon for the first time in a real-world scenario. The pressure was unbearable. "Target locked," the weapons officer called out, his voice tight with anticipation. The cannon fired with a deafening roar. A massive, concentrated beam of plasma shot toward the asteroid. The ship rocked as the energy coursed through the weapon, but the crew held their breath, watching the result. The beam hit the asteroid square in the center, and for a moment, there was nothing but a blinding flash of light. Then came the explosion, a cataclysmic burst of force that sent shockwaves through space. The asteroid was obliterated. Not a single fragment remained. The weapon had worked. The human modifications, combined with the alien tech, had created something powerful enough to erase a massive asteroid in an instant. For a few seconds, the crew stood in stunned silence. It was an impossible victory. The ship had done what no one thought possible. The weapon had functioned flawlessly. "Did we just do that?" asked Lieutenant Avery, his voice trembling with awe. "We did," Hayes said, his tone unwavering. "This is just the beginning." Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Humanity had taken alien technology and turned it into something they could use. And the results spoke for themselves. The first real test of the new hybrid ships had been a resounding success. The implications were huge. If they could do this with an asteroid, what else could they do? The Zorathians, observing from afar, watched in stunned silence as their once mighty technology had been transformed into a weapon of unimaginable power. They had underestimated humanity. And now, the galaxy was on notice. The first blood had been drawn, but humanity's journey was only beginning. As the days passed and humanity's hybrid ships continued to perform flawlessly, something shifted. The initial sense of excitement and wonder that had accompanied the discovery of the alien wreckage began to be tempered with a growing sense of unease. There was a ripple of doubt in the air, an undercurrent of fear that wasn't spoken aloud but was felt by those involved in the project. The Zorathians, who had watched in silence as humanity adapted their technology, were no longer content to sit back and observe. Inside the corridors of their secret council, a group of Zorathian leaders gathered. The soft glow of alien lights illuminated the room, casting long shadows on the walls as the voices of the elders echoed. Their homeworld, once a beacon of power and might, was now in tatters, and they had been forced to retreat from a war that they couldn't win. The defeat had humbled them, but it was something far more dangerous that now troubled their minds. The humans. "They're learning too fast," Elder Hrosk said, his tone cold and filled with concern. "Their ships are already outperforming anything we could have predicted. If we leave them unchecked, they will become more than we can handle." "Are you suggesting we intervene?" asked Elder Carroll, his voice sharp. "Our technology is theirs to use. We've already given them everything we can offer." "We gave them our wreckage, not our power," Hrosk replied, his eyes narrowing. "They have repurposed our technology into something that could rival or even surpass us, and their understanding of it is growing exponentially. If we don't act now, they could be a threat not just to us, but to all of our allies. We must either control their progress or stop it entirely." The council fell silent, the weight of Hrosk's words sinking in. It wasn't just about the humans' rapid technological advancements. It was about the power that was now slipping from the Zorathians' grasp. "We cannot afford to let them reach the stars with our weapons in their hands," Elder Voltrak, a veteran of countless battles, said grimly. "If we must sabotage their efforts to protect our future, then so be it. They are too unpredictable." Meanwhile, back on Earth, General Hayes had begun to notice the cracks in the otherwise seamless operation. There were things he couldn't explain. Small malfunctions in the ships, glitches in the systems that seemed almost too deliberate. A key component of their propulsion systems would fail without warning, or the energy conduits would short-circuit, slowing down the construction of new ships. At first, it was easy to chalk it up to the challenges of working with alien technology. After all, there were still many unknowns, but as the issues grew more frequent, Hayes' suspicion turned to something darker. He pulled Dr. Emily Carter aside one evening, away from the bustling research lab. "Something's wrong," he said, his voice low. "The ships, they're failing in ways that don't make sense. It's as if someone's tampering with them." Carter frowned, her mind racing. "You think someone's sabotaging our work?" "I don't know, but I can't ignore the pattern," Hayes replied, his face grim. "It's not just equipment failure. It feels intentional." The suspicion of sabotage grew as the military personnel began reporting similar issues across the board. The problems were always small, nothing major, but enough to delay progress and cast doubt on the reliability of their new fleet. The worst part was that the failures seemed to happen at crucial moments, when the ships were being prepped for important tests or missions. Hayes called in his top officers and engineers for a closed meeting. "We've been working under the assumption that nothing is standing in our way," he said, addressing the group. "But the Zorathians, they're not just watching us. I think they've realized what we're capable of, and I believe they might be trying to slow us down, either out of fear or for their own agenda." Carter was silent for a moment, processing what Hayes had said. "If they are sabotaging us, it's not just about the ships. It's about keeping us from becoming a threat." The room grew tense. The Zorathians had already shown their superiority in technology, but now they were meddling in humanity's rise. They weren't willing to let the humans become a new power in the galaxy. "We can't let them succeed," Hayes said, his voice firm. "We need to find the source of the sabotage before it's too late." The race against time had begun. The humans were on the verge of something monumental, but now they had to fight not just against the unknown dangers of space, but against a threat that had been quietly lurking within their own ranks. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity's ability to innovate and adapt, but they hadn't counted on humanity's ability to fight back when pushed to the brink. Weeks passed, and humanity's progress continued to astound both their allies and enemies. The sabotage, although troubling, had been contained for the time being. New ships were being built, new technologies adapted, and Earth's space defenses grew stronger with each passing day. It seemed as if nothing could stop them from becoming a dominant force in the galaxy. But on the edges of known space, a darker presence stirred. The Vraxians, a brutal and expansionist alien race known for their relentless conquest of weaker civilizations, had been watching Earth's rise with keen interest. Unlike the Zorathians, who had once tried to impose their will through quiet manipulation, the Vraxians believed in overwhelming force. They were a race forged in endless war, and their empire stretched across vast swaths of the galaxy. They had conquered planets, wiped out entire civilizations, and left nothing but ashes in their wake. To the Vraxians, the sudden appearance of a new power like humanity was not something to be celebrated. It was a threat that needed to be neutralized before it grew any stronger. The Vraxian warlord Kark sat in the command center of his flagship, a monstrous battle cruiser known as the Tempest. His people were fearsome warriors, but their shipbuilding technology was primitive compared to the Zorathians. However, where they lacked in technology, they made up for in sheer numbers and unrelenting force. Kark had heard whispers about the human ships, about the way they had adapted Zorathian technology. If what he had heard was true, then humanity might be able to turn the tide in any galactic conflict. That was not something Kark could allow. "Prepare the fleet," Kark ordered. "We're going to Earth." The news of the Vraxians' impending arrival spread quickly through military channels, and General Hayes was among the first to receive the intelligence. He studied the reports with a furrowed brow, his hands clenched around the datapad as he read. A Vraxian fleet was on its way, and it was enormous. Earth's ships, while powerful, were still relatively few in number compared to the Vraxians' vast armada. A confrontation seemed inevitable. In a war room beneath the surface of the Nevada base, General Hayes stood before a holographic map of the solar system. Dr. Emily Carter was at his side, her face etched with concern. "This is bad," she said softly. "The Vraxians are known for their speed and overwhelming force. They could easily wipe us out if we don't act fast." "We've faced threats before," Hayes replied, though his voice carried a hint of uncertainty. "But this is different. We're not just facing another alien species with weapons. The Vraxians don't care about diplomacy. They won't hesitate to burn everything to the ground." A military strategist, Colonel Lisa Harrow, spoke up. "We need to strike before they get too close. If we can catch them in deep space, we might have a chance to gain the upper hand." "Agreed," Hayes said. "We'll gather the fleet and meet them head-on. We've adapted the Zorathian technology, and now we need to prove it. This is humanity's first real test. We either show the galaxy that we can defend ourselves, or we'll be wiped out before we even get the chance to grow." In the days that followed, Earth's fleet prepared for battle. The newly built ships, some still in the final stages of construction, were rushed into service. The modified Zorathian tech had given Earth a fighting chance, but the Vraxians had sheer numbers on their side. It would be a battle of strategy, speed, and sheer willpower. The humans had no choice but to take the fight to the Vraxians. They couldn't afford to wait and hope that the Vraxians would turn away. As the fleet launched into the cold depths of space, the tension among the crew was palpable. There were no guarantees, no backup. The only thing they had on their side was the relentless determination to survive and protect their world. "This is it," Hayes said, looking out over the assembled ships. "We've faced impossible odds before, but this time, we're not just defending Earth. We're defending our future. And we will make sure the Vraxians understand that humanity isn't to be underestimated." As the Earth fleet moved toward the edge of the solar system, they knew they were walking into the jaws of an approaching storm. The battle for their survival was about to begin, and the Vraxians would not make it easy. But humanity, fueled by their ingenuity and the strength of their newfound power, was ready to face the challenge head-on. The Vraxian fleet arrived faster than anyone had anticipated. Their ships, brutal and relentless, tore through the vast expanse of space like a swarm of locusts. They had no interest in subtlety or diplomacy. Their mission was clear: eradicate any threat to their dominance, and the humans, with their newfound power, were at the top of the list. General Hayes stood at the helm of the vanguard, Earth's flagship, watching as the approaching fleet loomed on the tactical display. His mind raced, calculating the best course of action. The odds were overwhelming, but there was no turning back now. The first wave of Vraxian ships would reach Earth's defensive perimeter in less than an hour. The battle was about to begin. "We need to hold them off long enough to gain an advantage," Hayes said, his voice steady despite the pressure mounting in his chest. "Once we engage, we commit everything we've got. No retreat." Dr. Emily Carter stood beside him, her eyes glued to the data streams, trying to find any weak point in the Vraxian fleet. "The Vraxians are using large, heavily armored ships. If we can target their engines, we might be able to cripple their offensive power." Lieutenant Avery, who had been monitoring the fleet's movement, spoke up. "We've also identified a gap in their formation. If we strike fast and hit hard, we could break through their lines before they can regroup." "Agreed," Hayes replied. "Prepare the vanguard for combat. This is our only shot." The Earth fleet, a mixture of modified Zorathian ships and human-designed vessels, moved into formation, their engines glowing as they accelerated toward the incoming Vraxians. The atmosphere was tense, each ship brimming with readiness. No one knew how this battle would unfold, but all understood one thing: humanity's survival depended on the outcome. The Vraxians made the first move, launching a barrage of energy blasts from their massive warships. The sheer force of the firepower was staggering, and the blasts tore through space like thunder. The vanguard shook as the first wave of blasts rocketed past, but it held steady. Earth's ships responded in kind, opening fire with their newly adapted plasma cannons. The space around them erupted into chaos as the two fleets collided. It was a brutal exchange of firepower, each side throwing everything they had at the other. The vanguard fired its main cannon, sending a devastating plasma beam into the heart of a Vraxian dreadnought. The ship exploded in a massive burst of light, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The humans cheered, but the victory was short-lived. The Vraxians were relentless, their numbers far too great. "We need to break through their defenses," Hayes shouted over the chaos. "Focus on their command ships, take out their leadership." The Earth fleet maneuvered into position, concentrating their fire on the largest Vraxian warships. For every Vraxian ship that was destroyed, two more took its place. The human ships held their own, but the weight of the Vraxian numbers began to show. For every victory, there was a price to pay. The human fleet was taking damage, its shields flickering under the constant barrage. Then something unexpected happened. A new wave of Vraxian ships arrived, even more massive than the first. Their weapons were unlike anything the humans had seen before. Energy blasts that seemed to warp space itself, disintegrating everything they touched. The vanguard took a direct hit, its hull shuddering as the shields buckled under the assault. "Shields at 30%, cried one of the officers. "We can't take much more of this." "We can't afford to retreat," Hayes snapped. "Focus fire on the lead Vraxian dreadnought. If we can take down their leader, the rest will scatter." With a roar of determination, the human fleet shifted its fire, focusing every weapon on the Vraxian command ship. The battle became a desperate struggle, each side pushing its limits. The Earth fleet was battered, but the Vraxian leadership was now within their sights. The vanguard fired again, this time hitting the heart of the Vraxian dreadnought, sending it into a chain reaction of explosions. For a brief moment, the Vraxians faltered. Their lines wavered as the loss of their command ship disrupted their coordination. The humans seized the opportunity. The vanguard led the charge, breaking through the Vraxian defenses and launching a full-scale assault on the remaining warships. The Vraxian fleet began to crumble, their ships falling one by one, as Earth's fleet pressed forward with unmatched fury. "Keep pushing," Hayes shouted, as the vanguard tore through the heart of the Vraxian formation. "Victory is within our grasp." But the cost of victory was steep. The Earth fleet had lost several ships in the battle, and the vanguard was badly damaged. As the final Vraxian ships were destroyed or retreated, The remaining human ships floated in the aftermath, battered and scarred but victorious. Humanity had faced its first true test, and against overwhelming odds, it had triumphed. The Vraxians had been driven back, but the battle had changed the galaxy's perception of Earth. No longer would humanity be seen as weak or naive. They had proven they could fight and win. But with victory came new questions. The Vraxians might have been beaten, but the galaxy was vast, and the future held more threats. As the Earth fleet regrouped, Hayes knew this battle was only the beginning. The war for humanity's place in the galaxy was far from over. The silence after the battle was deafening. The remnants of the Vraxian fleet, once a force of overwhelming strength, now floated aimlessly through space, broken and scattered. The Earth fleet, though victorious, had paid a heavy price. The Vanguard, once the pride of humanity's new fleet, was heavily damaged, its hull scared and its systems strained. Several smaller ships had been lost in the battle, their crews either perishing or drifting in the cold expanse of space. General Hayes stood on the command bridge of the Vanguard, staring out at the aftermath. The stars stretched endlessly before him, but they didn't offer the same comfort they once had. The victory over the Vraxians was monumental, but the cost of it weighed heavily on his mind. There was no time to rest, no time to savor the victory. The galaxy had just witnessed humanity's power, and it would only be a matter of time before more threats arrived. "Status report," Hayes ordered, his voice low but resolute. Dr. Emily Carter, standing beside him, quickly consulted the data streams. "The fleet is damaged, General. We're in need of immediate repairs, especially the Vanguard. The plasma cannon is offline, and the shields are functioning at half capacity. We also have multiple casualties, but the majority of the crew is stable for now." Hayes nodded, a heavy burden settling over him. "How long until we can fight again?" "Not long," Carter replied. "The repairs are feasible, but it's going to take several days, maybe a week, before we're back at full strength. We have to prioritize critical systems first." "We'll need every minute of that," Hayes said grimly. "The Vraxians won't forget this, and we haven't seen the last of them. The galaxy is a much more dangerous place now." The battle had given humanity a glimpse of the stakes, but as Earth's ships limped back to their homeworld for repairs, it became clear that the real danger had only just begun. The Zorathians had already shown their unease at humanity's progress. The Vraxians had now felt humanity's might firsthand, and it was only a matter of time before other galactic powers took notice. Back on Earth, the victory over the Vraxians was met with mixed reactions. There was pride, certainly, and a sense of triumph, but also an undercurrent of fear. Humanity had proven it could fight, but now it would have to live with the consequences of that power. The world's governments, which had once been hesitant to fully embrace the alien technologies, now found themselves caught in a delicate balancing act. They had to defend their newfound place in the galaxy, while managing the growing tensions with other alien civilizations. The Zorathians, watching from the shadows, knew that their own position was growing precarious. The humans had outperformed them in ways they had not expected, and that put their influence in the galaxy at risk. But there was something else that concerned them: the human capacity for innovation. It was unlike anything they had seen before. The Zorathians knew that if they didn't act soon, humanity could become more than just a rival. They could become the dominant power in the galaxy. "We've underestimated them," Elder Krosk muttered to the rest of the Zorathian Council. "But we won't make that mistake again." Back on Earth, General Hayes was preparing for the next step. The fleet had won a significant battle, but the war was far from over. The Zorathians, the Vraxians, and any number of unknown threats from the deeper corners of space would not let humanity's rise go unchallenged. Hayes gathered his senior officers in a strategic meeting, the weight of the future pressing heavily on their shoulders. "We've made our mark," Hayes began, his voice steady but determined. "But now we need to plan for the long term. The galaxy is watching us, and the powers out there won't take kindly to our rise. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." Colonel Lisa Harrow spoke up, her tone sharp. "Our fleet is still new, General. The ships we have now are powerful, but we don't know how long they'll hold up under constant pressure. We need reinforcements, new ships, more tech, and better training for our forces." "We'll get them," Hayes said. "But we also need to consider something else. The technology we've adapted from the Zorathians might be our greatest strength, but it could also be our greatest weakness. We don't fully understand it yet. If it's turned against us, we won't be ready." There was a moment of silence as the weight of Hayes' words settled in. The Zorathian tech had been humanity's ticket to the stars, but it was also a reminder of just how vulnerable they were. Without the Zorathians' knowledge, they were walking a fine line between using this power to their advantage and becoming consumed by it. "We'll keep moving forward," Hayes said, his voice unwavering. "Humanity's future is on the line, and we'll fight for it." As Earth's fleet began its long journey back to the planet, preparing for repairs and regrouping, the sense of uncertainty lingered. The victory over the Vraxians had been hard-earned, but the challenges ahead were even greater. The galaxy had taken notice of humanity. Now it was up to them to decide whether they would stand tall as a new power or be crushed under the weight of forces far older and far more dangerous. The weeks following the battle with the Vraxians were a blur of repairs, briefings, and relentless planning. The Earth fleet was far from its former glory. The damage to the Vanguard was extensive, and many of the other ships in the fleet needed crucial upgrades. Humanity had won a victory, but the cost had been high. It had become clear that Earth was not yet fully prepared for the kind of war they were now facing. General Hayes stood before the holographic map of the galaxy in the briefing room, his gaze fixed on the stars. The battle had shown him the raw power of the Vraxians, but it had also revealed something far more concerning. They were not the only alien race that had been watching humanity's rise. Across the galaxy, powers far older and far more dangerous had taken notice of Earth's newfound strength. "The Vraxians will regroup," Hayes said to his senior officers, his voice steady but filled with the weight of experience. "But there are others out there, and we don't know what they're planning. The Zorathians, the Vraxians, they've only just begun to realize what we're capable of. We need to prepare for every possible outcome." Colonel Lisa Harrow nodded. "We've got the resources to build more ships, more weapons, but we don't know if that's enough. We're still playing catch-up, and it's only a matter of time before another force comes knocking. We need to find a way to level the playing field." Dr. Emily Carter, who had been poring over the Zorathian tech, raised her voice. "I've been looking into the technology we've adapted. There's still so much we don't understand about how it works. If we can fully unlock its potential, it could give us an edge, one we can't afford to lose." "How long do you think that will take?" Hayes asked, his eyes narrowing. Carter hesitated. "It could take months, maybe even longer. There are too many variables. But if we can crack it, we could create ships that are faster, stronger, and more resilient than anything we've ever seen. The Zorathians were far more advanced than we ever realized. Time is something we don't have," Hayes said grimly. "We need to move faster. Earth's defenses, our fleet, they need to be ready now. We need to consolidate our resources and begin forging new alliances. We can't fight this alone." The meeting continued into the night, each officer suggesting strategies, debating options, and assessing the state of Earth's military power. But Hayes knew the truth. Humanity was still vulnerable. Their ships, though powerful, were too few in number, and their understanding of alien technology was still in its infancy. The clock was ticking, and every moment brought new threats. Meanwhile, as Earth's military scrambled to prepare, the Zorathians were already plotting their next move. Elder Hrosk's warnings had not gone unheeded. His people had underestimated humanity once, but they would not make the same mistake again. The Zorathians were a proud species, and they could not allow Earth's rise to continue unchecked. They had once hoped to manipulate humanity, to control their development through covert means. Now they realized that a more direct approach was needed. "We cannot let them grow stronger," Krosk said to his fellow council members. "They have proven they can defeat the Vraxians, and their potential is limitless. We must take action before they become a true threat." One of the other council members, Elder Carroll, spoke up. "We have already given them our technology, but they are too unpredictable. They adapt faster than we anticipated. We cannot allow them to dominate the galaxy." Krosk's eyes gleamed with cold resolve. "Then we will take it all back. We'll strike at their core, disable their fleet, and reduce them to a fraction of what they are. This time, we won't offer them any chance to grow stronger." As the Zorathians prepared their next move, the humans were not idle. Earth's space stations were expanding. Research into alien technology was accelerating, and secret meetings with potential allies took place in the deepest recesses of military command centers. There was no more room for hesitation. General Hayes addressed his fleet one last time before the final phase of their plans would unfold. "This is the turning point," he said. "The galaxy will either recognize humanity's strength, or we will be buried under the weight of those who wish to see us fall. We fought back once, and we will fight again, harder, smarter, and together." The time for doubt had passed. The fight for Earth's future was no longer just about defending their home planet. It was about ensuring humanity's place in the galaxy. The Vraxians had learned to fear them. The Zorathians were watching with growing concern. And as humanity prepared to face whatever threats awaited them, they knew one thing for certain. They were no longer the underdogs in the galaxy. They were the hunters. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger, but humanity was prepared to meet it head-on. The path forward was uncertain, but for the first time in their history, Earth stood on the edge of something far greater than survival. They stood on the threshold of galactic dominance.